Your strategy is pathetic, Victoria sneered, deleting my database before the entire boardroom. Start over. I watched my work vanish, then picked up my ringing phone. Yes, I'll take the $1 million 0 cents offer to lead strategy. Her smirk froze as the room gasped. I stood frozen in the Vortex Dynamics boardroom, 30 pairs of eyes boring into me as Victoria Caldwell, our COO, shredded my life's work with a single keystroke. The Seattle skyline loomed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, a gray drizzle smearing the Space Needle into a blur, but inside, the air crackled with something far uglier than the weather. Victoria's manicured finger hovered over the delete key on my laptop, her lips curling into a smirk that said she'd already won. This, she announced, her voice slicing through the silence, is sentimental drivel. Alina Harper's so-called strategy is a disgrace to our efficiency-driven mission. My 18-month digital client database, every note, every connection, every dollar of loyalty I'd built, vanished into the ether. The projector screen flickered, then went blank, mirroring the hollow pit in my stomach. The room was packed, every seat at the mahogany conference table occupied by colleagues who'd once swapped coffee runs and happy hour gossip with me. Now they stared at their notepads or fiddled with their smartwatches, avoiding my gaze. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck, my pulse hammering like I'd sprinted a marathon. 18 months of late nights of memorizing clients' kids' names and their dreams for their companies, gone in a second. Victoria didn't just delete a file. She deleted me. And she did it in front of everyone, branding my work touchy-feely nonsense that undermined Vortex's cutthroat, tech-obsessed ethos. I wanted to scream, to lunge across the table and yank her perfect blonde bun loose, but my feet were cemented to the floor. Then my phone buzzed in my blazer pocket, a sharp vibration that snapped me out of my daze. I glanced at the screen under the table, expecting a sympathetic text from a coworker. Instead, the caller ID read Apex Innovations. My heart skipped. Apex was our biggest rival, a consultancy that thrived on poaching talent and clients from firms like ours. The message was short. $1 0 cents M/year to lead client strategy. Call us now. $1 million. More than triple my salary. And they'd sent it 30 seconds after Victoria obliterated my work, as if they'd been watching, waiting for this exact moment. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, my mind racing. This wasn't just an offer. It was a lifeline, a weapon, and I was about to wield it. Let me back up, because revenge stories like this don't start with a deleted file or $1 million text. They start months, sometimes years before the explosion, in the quiet moments where you decide who you're going to be. I joined Vortex Dynamics 2 years ago, fresh off a stint at a smaller firm in Portland, where I'd learned that clients aren't just contracts, they're people. Vortex was different, a Seattle powerhouse. It was all glass towers and AI algorithms. A place where consultants bragged about their billable hours like athletes flaunting game stats. The company was bleeding clients at a 20% annual churn rate, a dirty secret buried under glossy marketing decks. They hired me as a senior strategist to fix it, but from day one, Victoria made it clear she thought I was a waste of a corner office. Victoria Caldwell was the kind of boss who'd sell her soul for a spreadsheet. She worshipped efficiency, believed client relationships could be boiled down to automated emails and predictive analytics. Human connection is a liability, she'd say, her stilettos clicking across the open-plan office as she lectured us on lean operations. To her, Vortex success depended on cutting costs, streamlining calls, and letting our proprietary AI, Vortex Sync, handle client emotion. I thought she was delusional. Clients weren't robots. They were CEOs like Marcus Reed, who ran a biotech firm and cried on a call when he told me his daughter was in remission from leukemia. Or Fiona Walsh, whose fintech startup hit unicorn status, and who laughed with me over her obsession with Taylor Swift's latest album. These weren't data points, they were bonds. And those bonds were why Marcus renewed his $500,000 0 cents contract, and Fiona signed a $300,000 0 cents expansion deal. My strategy was simple. Listen, remember, care. I'd jot down details in my database. Marcus's daughter loves soccer. Fiona's startup was named after her grandmother. I'd follow up with personal touches, like asking Marcus how his daughter's first game went, or congratulating Fiona when her company landed on Forbes 30 Under 30. It wasn't rocket science, but it worked. In 18 months, I slashed Vortex's churn rate by 45%, a number even our CEO, Oliver Grayson, couldn't ignore. At our annual strategy retreat in Whidbey Island, with Puget Sound sparkling outside, Oliver raised a glass of Napa Valley Cabernet and toasted Elena's human touch for driving record retention. I caught Victoria's expression across the room, lips pursed, eyes narrowed like a cat watching its prey. She didn't clap. That was the moment the office split. Call it the Great Vortex Divide. On one side were Elena's allies, a scrappy group of analysts and account managers who believed relationships trumped algorithms. We'd huddle over beers at Pike Place Market, swapping stories about clients who stayed because we remembered their birthdays. On the other side were Victoria's loyalists, her hand-picked crew of data nerds and efficiency hawks who worshipped her gospel of lean operations. They'd whisper in the break room about how my soft skills were bloating call times, how I was a relic in a world ruled by AI. The tension simmered, but I didn't realize how far Victoria would go to crush me until the global summit. It was Vortex's biggest event of the year, held at the Washington State Convention Center, where 2,000 industry leaders gathered to hear our keynote. I was set to present our retention strategy, a chance to cement my reputation as the strategist who'd saved Vortex's client base. My slides were perfect, my script polished. But as I clicked to the third slide, the screen froze. Then, to my horror, it flickered to a live feed of client data, confidential, revenue projections, contract terms, names. Gasps rippled through the audience. I fumbled with the laptop, my palms sweating as I tried to shut it down. The tech team later confirmed it was a deliberate hack, traced to an internal IP address. I had no proof, but Victoria's smug glance from the front row told me everything. She'd sabotaged me, risking client trust to make me look incompetent. My reputation teetered on a knife's edge, but I salvaged the talk by pivoting to a Q&A, leaning on my charm to win back the room. Still, the damage was done. Whispers of data breach followed me for weeks. Victoria didn't stop there. She hit me with a 300-hour audit, demanding I document every client interaction from the past 2 years. It was a punishment disguised as procedure, meant to drown me in paperwork and keep me from the clients who trusted me. I poured my soul into it, turning the audit into an 80-page manifesto that proved my strategy had generated $1,200,000, 0 cents in revenue. Every coffee chat, every follow-up email, every "how's your kid doing" had a $sign attached. I thought it was my trump card, a shield against Victoria's disdain. I was wrong. The boardroom showdown came on a rainy Tuesday, the kind of day where Seattle feels like it's drowning. Victoria called an all-hands meeting, her voice dripping with false sincerity as she announced we'd review strategic missteps. She directed me to project my audit on the main screen, and I complied, assuming she'd finally see the numbers. Instead, she scrolled through my notes. Personal details about clients' lives, their hopes, their fears, and sneered. "This is emotional fluff," she said, her tone venomous. "Elena thinks she's running a therapy session, not a consultancy." My colleagues shifted uncomfortably, some nodding with Victoria, others shooting me sympathetic looks. Then she opened the master database, the heart of my work, and hovered over the delete option. "This violates our lean ethos," she declared. "It's a liability we can't afford." I opened my mouth to protest, but before I could, she clicked. The screen went blank. 80 pages, thousands of connections, $1,200,000, 0 cents in proof. Gone. The room fell silent, the only sound the hum of the air conditioning and the faint patter of rain outside. Victoria turned to me, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "From now on, we're doubling down on Vortex Sync. No more chit-chat. Efficiency is our future." I felt like I'd been punched, my breath shallow, my vision blurring. My allies in the room, Lila from Analytics, Jamal from Accounts, looked horrified, but Victoria's loyalists smirked, scribbling notes like they were at a sermon. Then came the second blow. As the meeting ended, I stepped into the executive elevator, my mind reeling. The doors closed, and the car lurched downward, not smoothly, but violently, a screeching grind that sent my stomach into my throat. I grabbed the railing as the lights flickered, the floor numbers blurring. 10, 9, 8, 7. I was in free fall, trapped in a steel box plummeting 10 stories. My life flashed before me. My parents' farm in Oregon, my first job in Portland, the clients who'd become friends. Then, with a bone-rattling jolt, the elevator stopped at the lobby. I stumbled out, gasping, as security rushed over. A technician later found the brake system had been tampered with, but no one could prove who. I didn't need proof. Victoria's game was escalating, and I was the target. Back in the boardroom, my phone had buzzed again. Apex Innovations wasn't just offering a job. They wanted me as Chief Strategy Officer with equity and total control over client relations. They'd been tracking Vortex's retention numbers, knew I was the reason for the turnaround. "We don't need your files," their message read. "We need your relationships." It was a gut punch in the best way. Victoria thought she'd erased my power, but she'd missed the truth. My work wasn't in the database. It was in the trust I'd built with Marcus, Fiona, and dozens of others who called me directly when they needed advice, and someone at Vortex had tipped Apex off about my audit before Victoria deleted it. Who? I didn't know, but the question gnawed at me, a puzzle I'd solve later. I walked back into the boardroom, my hands still shaking from the elevator. Victoria was mid-lecture, preaching about AI-driven client management. She noticed me and paused, her eyebrow arched. "Questions about our new protocols, Elena?" Her tone was a dare, like she expected me to grovel. I looked around at Lila's clenched fists, at Jamal's encouraging nod, at the loyalists' smug grins. Then I saw Oliver Grayson, our CEO, watching quietly from the back. This was my moment. "I'm done," I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "I'm resigning, effective immediately. I'm joining Apex Innovations as Chief Strategy Officer." The room erupted in gasps. Victoria's face froze, her mouth half open like a fish out of water. "You can't just quit," she stammered. "There are protocols, notice periods." I cut her off, pulling out my phone to show the Apex offer. "My contract allows immediate resignation in cases of hostile work environment. Deleting my work and endangering my safety qualify." I glanced at the elevator doors, letting the implication hang. Oliver stepped forward, his face pale. "Elena, let's discuss this privately." But I was done with backroom deals. Victoria had humiliated me in public. She'd face the consequences in public. "No discussion needed," I said, grabbing my bag. "I'm out." I walked toward the door, feeling 30 pairs of eyes on me. Some colleagues looked shocked, others inspired. A few, like Victoria's loyalist, Ethan, glared like I'd betrayed the company. As I reached the exit, Victoria called after me, her voice shrill. Apex is a pipe dream. You're throwing away stability for a fantasy about relationships over results. I paused, turning back to face her. We'll see who's right, I said. The words felt like a promise, not just to her, but to myself. I stepped into the hallway, the glass doors swinging shut behind me, and let the weight of the moment settle. Victoria thought she'd broken me, but she'd just handed me the match to burn her empire down. The clients she'd dismissed as data points were about to show her what loyalty really meant, and that locked file on her computer, labeled Project Eclipse, the one only she and Oliver could access. I didn't know what it was, but I'd find out. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about truth. And I was just getting started. The Seattle rain hadn't let up as I stepped out of Vortex Dynamics' glass tower, my resignation still ringing in the air like a gunshot. My heels clicked against the wet pavement, the city's neon lights reflecting in puddles as I clutched my bag, the Apex Innovations offer glowing on my phone. $1 million, Chief Strategy Officer, a chance to rebuild everything Victoria Caldwell had tried to destroy. But as I hailed a cab, a chill ran down my spine, not from the drizzle, but from the certainty that this was only the beginning. Victoria's smirk as I left the boardroom wasn't defeat, it was a promise of war, and I was about to learn how far she'd go to bury me. My first day at Apex Innovations felt like stepping into a parallel universe. Their office, perched in a sleek Belltown high-rise, buzzed with energy, open desks, whiteboard walls scrawled with ideas, and a coffee bar that rivaled Starbucks. Unlike Vortex's sterile cubicles, Apex screamed collaboration, a place where human connection wasn't just tolerated, but celebrated. My new boss, Rachel Nguyen, greeted me with a firm handshake and a grin. "We've been watching you, Elena," she said, her eyes sharp but warm. "Your retention numbers at Vortex were insane. We don't want your files, we want your magic." I exhaled, the weight of Victoria's betrayal lifting for a moment. Here, my strategy of treating clients like people wasn't sentimental drivel, it was the future. But the past wasn't done with me. By noon, my inbox pinged with a forwarded memo from Vortex, leaked to the entire industry. The subject line, "Security Breach, Elena Harper's Data Theft." My stomach dropped. Victoria had gone nuclear, accusing me of stealing proprietary client data before my resignation. The memo, stamped with Vortex's logo, claimed I'd downloaded sensitive files to sell to competitors, painting me as a corporate traitor. It was a lie, but a clever one. My audit had contained client details, and Victoria's deletion of it meant there was no evidence to prove I hadn't taken a copy. I could almost hear her voice dripping with venom. "If I can't win, neither will you." My phone buzzed relentlessly. Colleagues, reporters, even recruiters I'd worked with years ago, all asking if it was true. My industry standing, built over a decade, teetered on the edge of ruin. I called Rachel immediately, my voice shaking as I explained the memo. She didn't flinch. "This is Victoria's desperation talking," she said, leaning back in her glass-walled office. "We've got your back, but you need to fight this hard." Apex's legal team drafted a cease and desist letter, but the damage was spreading. On X, Victoria's loyalists, led by Ethan, her data-obsessed protege, launched a smear campaign. Hashtags like Elena the Traitor and Vortex Betrayed trended, with anonymous accounts posting doctored screenshots of my emails allegedly offering client data to Apex. The vitriol was relentless. "She's a snake, ruined a great company, all for a paycheck." I scrolled through the posts in my apartment that night, the Seattle skyline mocking me through my window. I'd left Vortex to escape Victoria's toxicity, but she'd followed me, weaponizing the internet to destroy my name. The next morning, a call from Marcus Reed, the biotech CEO I'd bonded with over his daughter's cancer recovery, pulled me out of my spiral. "Elena," he said, his voice steady, "I don't care about Vortex's memo. You're the only one who ever gave a damn about my company's mission. I'm moving my $500,000 0-cent account to Apex." I nearly cried, relief flooding through me. Marcus wasn't just a client. He was proof that my relationships were real, untouchable by Victoria's lies. That afternoon, Fiona Walsh, the fintech unicorn founder, called with the same message. "Vortex's new protocols are robotic," she said, laughing. "They sent me an AI-generated email about my growth metrics. I want you, Elena. My $300,000 0-cent deal's yours. 2 major clients in one day without me lifting a finger." Victoria thought she'd erased my power, but she'd only freed it. Back at Vortex, the cracks were widening. My allies, Lila and Jamal, who'd watched Victoria delete my work in horror, started leaking stories to the press. A TechCrunch reporter published a scathing piece titled, "Vortex's Efficiency Obsession: How COO Victoria Caldwell Drove Clients Away." It detailed her insistence on Vortex Sync, the AI that sent clients cold, formulaic emails, and quoted anonymous employees about her tyrannical leadership. The article didn't name me, but the implication was clear. My departure had sparked a reckoning. Victoria's loyalists hit back, flooding X with defenses of her visionary approach, claiming I'd sabotaged Vortex by coddling clients. The office was a battlefield, split between those who believed in my human-centric strategy and those who worshipped Victoria's data-driven dogma. The polarization wasn't just internal. It was splitting the industry, with consultants on LinkedIn debating whether empathy or efficiency was the future of client relations. But Victoria wasn't done playing dirty. A week into my Apex role, I noticed a black SUV idling outside my Capitol Hill apartment. At first, I'd brushed it off. Seattle's tech scene was full of flashy cars. But the same vehicle trailed me to work, its tinted windows hiding the driver. Then the notes started. Slipped under my door, tucked into my mailbox, each one scrawled in block letters, "We know your secrets you can't hide." My heart raced every time I left my building, my eyes scanning for that SUV. I reported it to the police, but without a license plate or clear evidence, they could only file a report. Rachel insisted on hiring a security firm, but the fear lingered. Was this Victoria's doing, or something bigger? The timing, right after her defamation campaign, felt too convenient. The pressure mounted when Oliver Grayson, Vortex's CEO, announced a board inquiry into the client retention crisis. I was summoned as a witness, a move that sent my anxiety into overdrive. Testifying meant facing Victoria again, in a room full of executives who'd either lionize me or crucify me. The night before the hearing, I barely slept, replaying the elevator incident, the hacked keynote. What if Victoria had more tricks up her sleeve? At the inquiry, held in Vortex's boardroom, she sat across from me, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes burned with something darker. Panic, maybe? Or desperation? The board grilled me on my strategy, my audit, and why clients were defecting. I told the truth. Clients stayed because I treated them like people, not numbers. Victoria's AI protocols pushed them away. The board's findings, released days later, were damning. Client loyalty hinged on my relationships, not Vortex Inc. Victoria's philosophy had failed spectacularly. But the victory was short-lived. A tech outlet, GeekWire, dropped an expose titled "Vortex's Collapse. Was Elena Harper the hero or the villain?" The article dissected my role in the defections, quoting Victoria's claim that I'd orchestrated the client exodus. Reporters camped outside Apex's office, shouting questions as I arrived. "Did you steal data, Elena? Are you profiting off Vortex's ruin?" It was the ruse. The media frenzy was suffocating, my name dragged through the mud alongside Victoria's. I issued a statement denying the allegations, but the public was split. Some saw me as a whistleblower, others as a corporate vulture. Ex-posts from Victoria's loyalists fueled the fire, while my allies countered with testimonials from clients like Nathan Cole, who told GeekWire he'd left Vortex because Elena valued my mission. Victoria didn't. Then came the lawsuit. Victoria, backed by Vortex's legal team, sued me for client poaching, alleging I'd violated a non-compete clause by luring Marcus Fiona and others to Apex. The claim was flimsy. My contract had no such clause, and the clients had followed me voluntarily, but the legal battle was a public relations nightmare. I hired a top Seattle attorney, draining my savings, and spent nights poring over documents with Rachel. She supported me. The stress was relentless, compounded by a new act of vengeance. Someone, likely a loyalist, vandalized my car, keying traitor into the hood outside Apex's garage. The police linked it to Ethan's IP address, but he denied involvement and the case stalled. I felt like I was drowning, caught in a web of Victoria's making. Amid the chaos, a cryptic detail surfaced. Lila, still at Vortex, texted me about an encrypted email Victoria had sent to an offshore account the day I resigned. The subject, Project Eclipse. It was the same locked file I'd noticed on Victoria's computer, accessible only to her and Oliver. What was she hiding? And why had Oliver met secretly with a competitor, Synergy Consulting, days before the board inquiry concluded? The questions gnawed at me, hints of a larger conspiracy I couldn't yet unravel. Was Project Eclipse tied to Vortex's sudden merger talks, whispered about in industry circles? I didn't have answers, but I had a hunch. Victoria's downfall wasn't just about her failed philosophy. She was protecting something bigger. The turning point came 6 weeks after my resignation, when Vortex's collapse hit critical mass. 18 major clients, representing 70% of their revenue, defected to Apex, citing Victoria's impersonal protocols. The company laid off 40% of its staff, sold its downtown headquarters, and faced bankruptcy. The board, fed up with the losses, fired Victoria, stripping her of her golden parachute. I heard through the grapevine that she'd argued with Oliver, blaming me for sabotaging her vision, but the evidence was undeniable. Clients like Nathan Cole had left because Vortex stopped caring. Victoria's denial, her insistence that clients were emotional rather than strategic, sealed her fate. She was out, unemployed, and unhireable, her name toxic in Seattle's tech scene. Then Oliver called, his voice heavy with defeat. "Elena, we need you back," he said. $2 million, 0 cents a year, total control, your strategy was right." I laughed, not out of joy but disbelief. 2 months ago, he'd watched Victoria delete my work in silence. Now, he wanted me to save his sinking ship? I leaned back in my Apex office, the city sparkling below, and said, "I'm happy where I am, Oliver. Apex believed in me from day one. Hanging up felt like closing a book. The final page of Vortex's failure, written in Victoria's own hand." The industry was changing, too. Consultancies across the U.S., from San Francisco to New York, started adopting my relationship-driven model, with articles in Forbes and Inc. praising empathy as the new ROI. The Elena-Victoria feud became a case study, sparking heated debates at conferences. Was efficiency dead, or was empathy overrated? The controversy only fueled Apex's growth. 3 months after joining, Rachel stepped down, and I was named CEO, leading a $500 million 0 cents valuation surge driven by my ex-Vortex clients. Marcus, Fiona, Nathan, they weren't just accounts, they were the foundation of a new era. Proof that human connection outlasted algorithms. As I stood on Apex's rooftop deck, celebrating our record quarter with a glass of Washington Riesling, I thought about Victoria. Not with anger, but with clarity. She'd tried to break me, through defamation, stalking, lawsuits, vandalism, but she'd only broken herself. Her efficiency obsession, her refusal to see clients as people, had torched Vortex's empire. My revenge wasn't in scheming or sabotaging. It was in thriving, in proving her wrong by building something better. Project Eclipse, that offshore email, Oliver's secret meeting, they still lingered, unanswered questions I'd chase another day. For now, I raised my glass to the skyline, to the clients who'd trusted me, to the allies who'd fought for me. The best revenge, I realized, was letting Victoria's own choices destroy her while I soared. If you've ever been burned by a boss who didn't see your worth, I want to hear your story. Share it below. Because sometimes the sweetest victory is watching the truth win. And if this tale of betrayal and triumph hit home, stick around. There's more to come, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next.